everybody to the webinar, and very much on behalf of BCS Women and Digital Divide Specialist Group. Just a couple of admin points, and I'll put them in the chat. Please could you put your questions into the chat, because they'll be dealt with at the end. So questions in the chat, please. And it's very nice if you could actually put in the chat where you are at the moment. And I'm in Bournemouth, so I'll put that in the chat. And at that stage, I'm going to pass across to Freddie, the chair of Digital Divide. Thank you, Freddie.
Thank you, Margaret. Good afternoon, everybody in the UK, or if you're somewhere else, good day to you all. Welcome to this webinar organized jointly with the BCS Women. This is our first joint. We are a very new SG, and we are trying to be as inclusive as we can. And the word itself doesn't really mean anything specific other than the fact that we must practice what we understand to be, not leaving anybody behind. Right? So we're taking in a very general sense. And in this case, this is why we're trying to make a connection for people. Topics such as this today that we're discussing, autism. What has it got to do with inclusion? What has it got to do with digital inclusion? So hopefully you will enjoy this conversation, this presentation today by Dorothy and Marie. And I'm not going to take up any more airtime. Over to Andrea, who is my partner in crime here.
Thanks, Freddie. So I'm Andrea Palmer. I'm the chair of BCS Women, but I just wanted to say a few words before we actually start, which is why sort of the reason why we've done this jointly. Diversity and inclusion is more than policies, programs, and headcounts. It's about equitable in practices and working with people and learning from different perspectives from all our different team members. As a result of having sort of diverse and inclusive workplaces, we earn deeper trust and commitment from our employees and are more likely to have an innovative and profitable company. Companies that embrace neurodiversity in the workplace can gain competitive advantage in many areas, not just in productivity, but in the organizational culture, talent retention, and innovation. But many organizations fail to hire people with neurocognitive challenges or support them in the workplace. Diversity is important because it offers us a lens from lots of different perspectives, whether it be gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, age, neurodiversity. There's a whole spectrum that we could actually consider. And looking at this provides us with a different perspective, which leads us to diversity of thought. This stops decisions that are being made as a result of deep groupthink and narrowly focused ideas. Equity, diversity, and inclusion bring significant benefits to all organizations and lead to better solutions and address the talent shortages that we currently see in the tech industry. This is why BCS Women are keen to partner with the Digital Divide Specialist Group today. So thank you all for attending, and back to you, Margaret.
Thank you very much. I think this is great. I've just put again a reminder to people to put questions in the chat, and if possible, to put their locations into the chat as well, as we already have some from different parts of Europe already, which is fantastic. We are very, very lucky today to have two fantastic speakers, Marie and Dorothy. And at that stage, I'll pass across to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Margaret, Andrea, Freddie, and everybody from the BCS community. Caroline as well, who we spoke to earlier. My name is Dorothy Muir and I'm from Brain in Hand. I'm a National Engagement Manager. And I'm just going to ask Marie to quickly introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. My name's Marie Gavin. I'm a Regional Engagement Manager for South London and the South East, and very pleased to be here today. Thank you.
And Marie and I are going to jointly work this presentations, which means that she's going to move on the slides, which means that we will be using the classic Chris Whitty next slide, please. It just makes it easier than keep swapping control. As Margaret said, we found it easier to actually get the questions in the chat. When we're doing sessions, we found that it's actually less distracting for other people. We've had a question before we came on today about whether we do live transcript on this. The recording of this is going to be available, so if anybody wants to watch it in their own time. And our answer to Margaret was, we're not sure, depending on the group, whether you would want live transcript or not, because for some people where we've dealt with audiences who are autistic, they found it a distraction. Other people have found it beneficial. So at the moment, we've gone for the fact that this is a recording and you can access this afterwards. So we hope that that suits everybody. I'm going to talk about brain and hand, but before I do, I'm just going to probably echo the comments there made by Andrea and talk about the title of this presentation is Helping People Succeed in the Workplace. And actually, I echo completely Andrea's sentiments there. And in other presentations that we do quite heavily focus on, some people call them reasonable adjustments, we would call it a supportive workplace. And maybe just start following on really from Andrea's comments about what reasonable adjustments are and how we can work with them. And obviously there are the legal requirements, but for us, there's an awful lot of evidence out there that, as Andrea said, it's actually not just good ethical and equitable sense, but good business sense for businesses to make sure that they offer people the support that they need. And in that, we usually quote some figures from Deloitte, who've done lots and lots of studies on this, and they estimate, quite shocking really, that up to half of all working days lost, which costs employers across the UK 33 to 42 billion, and I repeat that, 33 to 42 billion pounds a year. Most of those are through mental health issues and stress and anxiety. And we know that for a lot of autistic people in the workplace, a lot of people who are neurodivergent, that without the proper support, they can actually end up leaving jobs, which is a terrible waste of talent, and find it difficult to actually get into new employment. So from our point of view, when we do presentations to businesses, we really emphasize that data that is there about investment and how well that can work. So as I say, Aviva investors report that the value of an adjustment for a person, an uplift in their performance, can be up to 50%, and that's as rated by managers. So really just echoing before we start Andrea's comments there, that this is, we are obviously a hybrid digital support, as it says on this slide, but actually we also, when we do presentations, really emphasize the simple adjustments, many of which are free, that companies can make, whether it's giving a bit of thought to a seating plan, giving a wee bit of thought to heightened sensory awareness, and that if somebody does, for example, have a real sensory awareness and overload on smells, then we don't necessarily put their desk right by where other members of staff would be preparing quite highly smelling or spiced food. We don't put them, if they're hypersensitive to noise, near the point in offices where everybody gathers to talk about what they've seen on TV last night. So we really do emphasize not just brain in hands approach, but a very simple and understanding approach. And on one of our presentations we do end with a slide that says the best adjustment anybody can make is simple acceptance. But I obviously am here today to talk to you about our digital hybrid support and what is unique about brain in hand. For me, this slide is my absolute favourite, in that it really encompasses it in a kind of really simple graphic there. Brain in hand, not suitable for everybody. People have to have literacy. They have to be able to engage with mobile phones and a website. We do work with people who've got quite low levels of literacy and using lots of emojis, but they have to have a basic level. But it cannot work, and the key part of it for me is the person in the middle. It cannot work without the engagement and the involvement of the person. And hopefully it can be quite helpful for you to know my background in this is that I come from an NHS and commissioning and care background and part of my career. And I can actually hand on heart say and put my hand up and say that along with colleagues with very good intentions, I know that we've design support which we thought was great, but we're still kind of pushing people through a very specific box of the support service or the support, whereas this blends around the person. We're not trying to pigeonhole somebody into a very specific shaped service. So it's about self-management for daily skills. That can be everything from executive function. It can be where people have slight problems with short-term memory. It can be for organisational skills. It can be for planning for unexpected events and deviations in routine, which can be a real issue for some people, sudden changes to routine. It can be for social prompts of how to interact with people at work, what is appropriate and what's not, how to initiate conversation. All of those kind of self-managing skills, which is reinforced by the technology. But what's unique about Brain in Hand, and I came across it when I was working in the NHS, as I say, and I was involved in looking at different evaluations of digital technology and working on a digital inclusion project. And I saw that it had the human support at the beginning with our specialists, and we have a range of specialists, and Marie's going to talk a bit about those, but it also has a response service at the end. And for me, that's the real strength and the real difference. We use a lot of apps. We used a lot of apps in NHS, and there is what they call quite a low adherence rate to an app that is prescribed for somebody or given to somebody or used in a workplace where it is just an app. There's lots and lots of clinical evidence around that. So what's kind of convinced me for Brain in Hand is this combination of the human support. Marie, could you, next slide, please? If you're there, have we lost Marie? No, we haven't. Hi. You've gone dark there, Marie. I thought I was on my own for a minute.
No, not alone.
No, never alone. Thank you. I just want to highlight as well, as we're talking about neurodivergence and autism in particular, some of the strengths and potential barriers as well to achievement. We know managers and companies, if they take time, as Andrea said, to find out about people's skills and what they need to achieve their optimum, then we need to explore a little bit what they find easier and what they may find difficult in doing their job. But we know particular skill set, and we're not trying to pigeonhole people with this. We discussed this with the ADHD Foundation, for example, and they also use this slide. And we know the skills that currently companies are missing. We know that neurodivergent people may have great attention to detail, thoroughness and accuracy, and how many jobs is that so crucial in? We know that when they can focus, it can be really deep concentration. We know that some people have got really, really acute observational skills, and actually tenacity and resilience. If you look, I'm not going to go through all of those, but if you look through those, they're an amazing, amazing skill set. And yet, if we don't put the necessary support or adjustments, whatever you want to call them, in place, then people can really struggle and flounder. And sadly, lots of people end up exiting the workplace. One of the things that we need to make sure we've got is regular contact and clarity from managers on what is expected. And that's one of the things that sometimes with our specialists, people will work with. What is it your manager expects from you? Have you had a conversation about this? What is a solution? What is a strategy for when you have to have those difficult conversations? Simple things like interpreting emails, taking them very literally, not getting nuance. If someone knows that you need something very, very clearly, just having that conversation with the manager to make sure they don't put it full of metaphors, which I'm particularly fond of and prone to, and making sure that the language is clear and easily understood. Another issue for some people is impromptu meetings. Clearly, in some companies, that is sometimes going to happen. So what we would say to people is have a kind of contingency for people, and the Brain in Hand specialist certainly works to help someone put in a solution into Brain in Hand so that when that does occur, it's easier to cope with. And the final thing on that slide is probably the one where you find probably cultural resistance to supporting someone or adjustments, a kind of favour, oh, this is favouritism, they're getting something extra. And actually, sometimes it can just be a question of whole team training sessions like this and awareness building of how we support the whole team by supporting individuals. Next slide, please, Marie. Thank you. I've put in this this technical slide because we knew we were coming to talk to the British Computer Society. I'm going to confess that I am not a particularly technical person. So what I'm just going to do is probably leave that on there for 5 or 6 seconds just for people to have a look at without me talking over it. So the current tech stack there is on the left. I can say something because I do know a little bit, and Marie and I are involved slightly with the product team. They've got a very, very agile approach, and they're having two-week development pushes and cycles, and it really is an evolving product. And that's why one of the reasons we put that little line on the front of our slides is to make sure that when we do share recordings or share slides, that you kind of use them for people that weren't present that day and for the next couple of weeks, but we'd really prefer to update you so we make sure we give you the most up-to-date information. Next one, please, Marie. Thank you. So some of the things that Brain in Hand may support within the workplace. These are picked out from live examples from people who have used Brain in Hand, and I think probably the most common ones and particularly prevalent ones, travelling independently or travel anxiety, particularly as people are called back into offices, is a real issue. And probably the other one is managing change and uncertainty in the workplace. If we're talking about workplace, we also do support, say, a large number of students. So we've got about 5,000 students at British universities that use Brain in Hand for a wide range of reasons. They access it through funding for disabled students allowance. Many of them are not disabled as such, but may, and in fact, they may not regard themselves as that, but they may have mental health or anxiety issues and be Brain in Hand issues to support those. As I say, we support a really wide range of people, but the issues that I've highlighted are really those few key workplace ones there. Developing workplace skills that I've mentioned before, that kind of knowing what the local culture is in terms of relationships with colleagues, if you're in a new office, and bedding in, and knowing where simple things such as knowing where things are within a large building. And Marie works, and colleagues at a specialist work on devising special pages that link to a person's workplace that's really, really tailored. And the whole idea of Brain in Hand is that rational thing, your rational and best thinking, is there and in your phone and on your website, so that perhaps when you become anxious, you know that it's there in the palm of your hand. Next one, please, Marie. So it's fully personalised service that, as I mentioned before, it can't work. The app cannot work, and it has no value without the person's involvement. The human support, which is our specialists, Marie is going to tell you a little bit about, they range from teachers to counsellors to mental health specialists, a wide range, and we're really fortunate to have them. The connectivity, so connected 24 hours a day, the support is there, and reflection is built in, and that's maybe a key thing for the workplace. So a person using this in the workplace could, if they've got a nice positive relationship going with their manager, have that reflection built in, and if they're willing to share their timeline, which comes from their app, then that can actually help highlight pressure points in the week, things that might need adjusting in the workplace. I've got an example that I'm going to actually give you, which is not workplace, but hopefully you'll see. And also, if you were a large company and you had a number of people using this, it may help you identify certain pressure points in the week. So we had University de Montfort, who had a large programme of licences, and our response service noticed that red, which obviously, as you may guess, is not very good, and Marie's going to talk a bit about that later, we were getting lots of red presses on a Wednesday afternoon. And those of you who are from university will know that Wednesday afternoon is sports, fairly unstructured for everybody else. And when we went back to de Montfort with that broad range of anonymised data from a lot of people and said, we think you've got an issue here, and we think it might be the lack of structure, go back and try and see what you can do. They brought in a whole range of activities at that university on a Wednesday afternoon for people that may not actually want to be involved in team sports. And over the months, the number of red presses went down. So it's just a really simple example of how on a broad level, the data can be used within a wide workplace to make improvements. But obviously for the individual, it can really, really support good conversations with their manager about difficult points in the week. If a particular meeting is triggering anxiety in them, why and what is it about that? We then, I'm just going to move that on, Marie, because I can't actually see the end of that slide, sorry. And you're going to talk a bit about specialists, aren't you, and Becky?
Yes, I am. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Dorothy. So going to look at this in a bit more detail here about the specialist role and how they work with our users. So at Brain in Hand, we have over 80 specialists across the UK now, and all of our Brain in Hand specialists are practitioners in their own fields. They come from various different professions such as mental health nursing, OT, social work and teaching backgrounds. So their human support is what makes Brain in Hand unique to other products. So just a little bit of background on our specialist mentioned in this slide. So this is my colleague Becky, who is an approved Brain in Hand specialist, and she's previously worked as a mental health nurse. Becky values a person-centered approach and having the opportunity to support users during their personal planning sessions. So looking at the cycle here on the slide and starting at the top and breaking it down. So during the personal planning sessions, our specialists explain the Brain in Hand system and how it can be useful to the user. And during this process, they introduce the user to a handbook and help guide with the software setup. So also offering regular reviews and refreshers to encourage that smooth journey planning. So our specialists personalise their approach, helping users identify their areas of focus, any challenges they may face, and identifying those barriers as stopping the user from making the users making those positive changes. The personal planning sessions are very solution focused, where each specialist help break down tasks into manageable chunks, and helping build structure for the user for actively trying to embed Brain in Hand into their day-to-day life. So together with the user, the specialist assists with identifying their strengths and builds useful strategies. And specialists consistently reflect with our users, acknowledging their achievements, reviewing any trigger identification and establishing new challenges. So actively encouraging that positive reinforcement throughout that journey. So the next slide I'm going to show you is a video, and this video is of our system walkthrough. So this will give you a visual outline of what I've just been talking about with regards to the specialist support and what Dorothy's been explaining about what Brain in Hand is and those three core elements.
Brain in Hand helps you do the things you want to do. Whether you want to focus on improving your confidence, managing anxiety, planning, or working towards something specific, it gives you control and it's always personal to you. It's a combination of simple digital tools and practical human support from people who can help you focus on what matters to you. We'll never tell you what we think you should do. We just help you find the best path to being who you want to be. When you get started with Brain in Hand, you won't be on your own. We'll work with you to help you think about your current situation and what you struggle with. We'll focus on your strengths, values, and successes and the things you'd like to work on. Together we'll break down problems into manageable steps, and you'll learn how to put these into Brain in Hand so you can access them on your phone whenever you need them. And we'll stay with you on your journey with regular reviews. You can easily see upcoming events on your diary page and set reminders so you don't forget your schedule. You might have your morning routine, including activities for eating breakfast, what you need to pack for the day, or using public transport, so you can easily manage your routines. If you're trying to take the bus but it's late or crowded, just tap on the problem to see solutions in your own words, ones you know work for you. Brain in Hand gives you a practical step-by-step guide to solving problems, like checking the timetable, or calling somebody to let them know you'll be late. You can add links straight to the timetable webpage or the phone number so you can do it in one easy tap. Or your solution might be to do breathing exercises or watch a video, whatever makes you feel better. For when something unexpected happens, create unplanned strategies so you can solve problems quickly. If things feel too hard to manage yourself, it's okay. You won't be alone. Just press red in your simple traffic light system to let somebody know you need a bit of help, and we'll get in touch with you by phone, text, email, or however you prefer to be contacted as a helping hand response. Or you could set up your system to send an alert to a friend or family member if you prefer. Your traffic lights don't just let you ask for help, they also let you keep track of how things are going and celebrate successes. You can press green to say everything's okay. Sometimes just realising things aren't as bad as you might think can help it all seem easier to deal with. Or orange for things aren't great, but I can cope. Everything you press is recorded on your timeline. You can look back and see which problems come up the most often, or which solutions help you feel green. This can help you update your brain in hand with your best solutions. You can also review your timeline with people who support you to keep track of how things are going. It can help you to highlight your successes and focus on things that regularly cause problems. As you use Brain in Hand, you'll develop your confidence. Maybe you'll be able to do things on your own that you needed help with before, or even try completely new things. With Brain in Hand, you'll always know you've got advice that works for you. And with the safety net there if you need it, you can focus your energy on what matters to you.
So I'm going to hand you back to Dorothy.
Thanks, Marie. I just want to talk a little bit about Brain in Hand as an organisation. We came out to evolve from the Exeter University Innovation Centre, and within quite a short time, really, less than 10 years, it's become quite a scalable solution. And the track record, as you can see, I'm not intending to run through everything on that slide. I'd just like to highlight for you the bit down the bottom left, SBRI, Small Business Research Initiative. In fact, it says 2 there, but we've actually got 3 phases, and we're actually involved in clinical trials, and we're hoping to have a very positive report that's coming out in the autumn. And that's revolving around, and it may be of interest because undiagnosed or unacknowledged neurodivergence. So we know that people can wait for up to 2 years for a diagnosis. So SBRI funded Brain in Hand to run trials, and we've got a trial of over 100 people who were on the waiting list for actually diagnosis, and were given Brain in Hand as an interim solution. And obviously there's going to be measurements on that about reducing reducing anxiety and increasing life satisfaction. So we've got those trials are ongoing, and we've got another one about how we coming up about how we help people to self-refer and screen in and out for that. So I just mentioned that because it's quite widespread, and it may be, we've mentioned neurodivergence, we've mentioned autism, but actually we're very aware that a lot of people may not either share, or sometimes it's called disclose, but we would say share, that they are autistic. They may not be aware in the sense that they may never have had an assessment, and particularly as we're speaking today to the women's section, we know, and we're experiencing from the people that come to us, that we're increasingly getting referrals for Brain in Hand from quite mature women who've had quite late diagnosis, particularly it seems for autism and ADHD. Next slide, please, Marie. We're Reactive at the moment. We're active in at least 20 workplace sectors. Those are just some of them. They really are a wide spectrum. We also are increasingly seeing individual companies coming through and funding it for their employees. I've mentioned the Small Business Research Initiative, and those pins on the map are just where we operate. We also operate programs, and that's for people who may have slightly higher need, who maybe are under the care of adult social care. So they may have a mild learning difficulty combined with autism, and maybe, for example, transitioning into independent living. We've also worked with some trusts on acquired brain injury, but I would emphasise that that's very, very much towards the latter end of the scale, where people are at the point of, or actually have returned home and or are returning to work. So we do work across quite a lot of wide variety of areas there, and increasingly different workplace sectors. Next slide, please, Marie. How's it funded? Some people do self-fund Brain in Hand. We have large numbers of people, and we deal quite a lot with the Department of Work and Pensions and access to work. And we're always conscious when we do these presentations that people go away and talk to their family. So we're going to kind of give a little bit of information that may not be relevant to you, but may be useful for family members. Department of Work and Pensions access to work is not a massively known payment. We would emphasise it's not just for brain in hand, so it can be for all sorts of adjustments in the workplace. It can range from things like a screen reader to anything that supports people who may be hard of hearing. It can range from support tools for dyslexia to make work easier, to brain in hand, to actual workplace coaching and support. So one of our missions as well is to make people aware of that. And it's very much one of the main routes into funding for brain in hand. People also have personal independence payments that they may use that to fund brain in hand. As I say, we've got 5,000 students using that disabled students allowance, and the group programs that are funded through local authorities. So the licence is funded for a year initially, and then renewal at lower cost. It offers personalised planning sessions with our specialists with an offer of ongoing access and review of goals. So in effect, it's like an ongoing support throughout the year where you can arrange for a review if you think that your goals and your strategies are not quite right. The software is obviously included. Technical supports if there are any technical difficulties, and the key thing, as I say, the crucial thing, and particularly of interest probably to managers in workplaces, is that you are generally not available if you're a Monday to Friday outfit at 9 to 5. And this can provide a useful weekend support for people. That response service is available 24 hours a day through Taking Care, or we have a choice of service that's provided by the National Autistic Society, and that's more limited, that's 8 till 6 Monday to Friday. But we very much are looking at maintaining 24/7 cover if people need it. And that's quite often something that is not really recognised with people who may be neurodivergent. We've got lots of colleagues at work who we work with, and we're really aware that to actually get through the day, process all those tasks, may take them a third more energy than it takes us. So that decompression either at the end of the week, or that kind of steeling yourself. And I think whether we're neurodivergent or neurotypical, many of us have been in experiences, perhaps because we're not in the right workplace for us, where you've got to kind of really steel yourself on a Sunday night to going on a Monday morning. And Brain in Hand can really help with that, with coping with anxiety and return to the workplace. Next slide, please. I've explained a bit about the funding. There's an online referral process. Receive a quote, the user gets registered and the support is provided. It's a very simple little slide there. Next slide, please, Marie. There's an app that you can download yourself, and that is you just need to download the app from the Google Store or the App Store, depending on which devices you're using, and the passwords are there. They're not really got full functionality for obvious reasons, but it is useful as an indicator if anyone wants to try it. I'm just going to respond a little bit and talk about one of the things there. I've spoken about workplace adjustments and support, and I think when I come to the questions, just to reassure people who are asking, we're going to talk a little bit in the Q&A session about workplace and simple adjustments. Next slide, please, Marie. Thanks. That's Marie and I, and those are our contact details.